I have an outstanding set of panelists up here, and I do want to go ahead and get started, but I know people are coming in. The way we're going to run this panel is that we're going to go down the line with introductions, and we're going to take a series of questions, but I want to encourage you to know that the opportunity to ask a question can come at any time. There'll be an opportunity. There's a mic here. And if you feel that you have a comment or question about the specific topic that we're discussing and you want to bring that into the conversation, just come to the mic. Okay? So let's get started. My name is Chissell. I run Advanced Energy Group, which is a stakeholder platform across Chicago, Washington, D.C., and New York City, and now Denver, where we bring together top strategic energy stakeholders focused on energy transformation of cities. So that engagement process with leadership and having a focused view on something and working together all supports kind of the appreciation I have to be on a panel and on a stage with the four of you. These are all leaders in their respective industries and companies, and then we're going to talk about software as a service, energy as a service, the future of the utility. And with that, Roger, I'm going to let you lead off with introductions.
Thank you. My name is Roger Smith. I run the global utilities business from Oracle. And that's really everything from the plants, so asset management, all the way through the network and operations management. We also have MDM solutions and customer care and billing solutions as well. So we run the full gamut of the value chain in the utilities industry, and we're extremely bullish about this industry.
Hi, I'm Larry Weiss, General Manager and CEO of Seattle City Light, and formerly the CEO of Austin Energy. So it's nice to come back and hang out my old haunts around here and see a lot of friends. I've been in the electric power business for 35 years and all publicly owned utilities. I'm a native of the Northwest, so I'm back home and to where I was born in Seattle. And I've worked around a lot of technology in this industry, and I've seen it evolve at an amazing pace. So thanks for having me here today.
Great, and I'm Mary Powell. I'm the CEO of Green Mountain Power in Vermont. We serve 76% of Vermonters, which means that we're tiny. I came to Vermont and Green Mountain Power from Manhattan, which is where I was born and raised, and started my career in the mutual fund business. Have a very diverse background, and actually I love the title Design for Energy because I actually started life as an artist, trained as an artist, went to a specialized high school for art, and went to college for art. So I think I'm in the right place. Nice to be here.
So good morning, everybody. I'm Ben Fowke, and I'm the CEO of Xcel Energy. We're an investor-owned utility. We serve 3.6 million electric customers, 2 million gas customers in 8 western and midwestern states. Really excited about the energy future, too. I think we're a big part of it. We're going to talk a little bit about customization and some things like that, I think, later in the panel. But I wanted to just let you know what I really focus on for the benefit of all our customers, and that's safe, reliable, affordable, clean energy. And we're going to talk a lot about clean, I think, today, and some other things. But I'd be remiss if I didn't talk a little bit about safe and reliable. You know, our customers generally think of us twice a month. Once when they, or rather, once a month when they pay their bill, which hopefully is on time, and hopefully it's direct deposit. And then another time when the lights are out, which doesn't happen very often in our space. So we've come to take for granted that our power is safe and reliable, and I think as we look forward to the energy future, and it is exciting, we can never lose sight of the fact that we are providing an essential service to humankind. And there are bad actors out there that would like to see that not happen. I had the opportunity to speak at a Senate panel yesterday in D.C. around the threats to cyber to the grid, and they're real. And we've got to be careful as we add the Internet of Things and the technologies to the energy future, that we're very responsible in how we do that. So that's the thing we got to be remembering. The clean and the affordable I'm really excited about. We've been a leader in wind and renewables for more than a decade now, and we've got 8,000 megawatts of wind that we provide our customers. We've already reduced carbon by 30%. And if you saw the announcements, you see that in the next 5 years, we're going to add 3.4 gigawatts of wind for the benefit of our customers. Our carbon emissions will go down to 45% carbon emission by 21. 35% of our energy will come from wind. That's all good, but we're going to save our customers billions, yes, billions of dollars over the 25-year life of those projects. Because right now, with where technology's gone, combined with the tax incentive, I'm buying wind cheaper, and I consider it a fuel. I'm buying wind cheaper than I can fire up a gas plant or a coal plant and use that variable energy. So we've got a thing we call steel for fuel, where we're trading fuel for steel, in this case windmills, and saving customers money. I'm really excited about it. I'm excited about other places we can go as an industry, and happy to talk to this panel about it.
That's great. Thank you. So, Roger, when we have this topic is software as a service for the utility industry, we had an opportunity to get into this question upstairs a little bit. What do you see as the definition of software as a service, and how does that impact the utility space?
Yeah, so let me talk about maybe a little bit of an analogy. And both of our industries are going through large changes. Obviously, the utility industry is going through big changes, as is the IT industry in general going through large changes. And we're moving to that software as a service or cloud model. And let me tell you how it used to be. And some of these folks who have used our solutions over the years can probably remember those days. But I'm going to use an automobile analogy. In the old days in the IT industry, if you wanted to buy a piece of software, this is what you did. You bought the software, and we sent it to you. But we didn't install it, right? It'd be like buying a car and having us deliver all the pieces to your driveway. And then you had to go hire a third party to actually install our software. So if you bought a car the same way, you'd have to hire somebody to actually put the car together for you in the driveway, right? And then you had to learn how to drive the car. Well, we didn't do that either. If you bought our software, we didn't teach you necessarily how to use it. That'd be like buying a car, parts in the driveway, somebody assembled it, now somebody has to teach you how to drive it. That was the old on-prem model that we used for years in our business. And that's changed dramatically as it moves to the cloud, because now, using that same car analogy, it's like we provide the car and a driver. And oh, by the way, for a fee, you get to use that for 3 years. You never have to worry about upgrades to the car. You used to have to worry about upgrades to software. You don't have to worry about having the driver prepared and ready to go, because we handle all that. It's a much different model today than it was years ago. We learned it really from the utility industry, I have to tell you. If you went back and looked, in fact, you can Google this. If you look at Larry Ellison, who still is deeply engaged in our company, if you looked at his speech that he did at our industry conference that we have every September, October time frame in San Francisco, where 60,000 of our closest friends kind of show up to talk about the industry, right? Larry compares where we're moving the IT industry, that old model where we just laid the parts on your driveway and you had to worry about the rest of it, to the utility industry. Larry talks about IT becoming the fourth utility. And that is because, maybe contrary to some of the things that are assumed, we believe the utility industry is the quintessential cloud business or software as a service. If you think about how simple it is to use utilities, all I have to do is, if I want to use electricity, all I have to do is look for a nice clean little outlet, I plug my device in, and I use the device I want to use. That is the cloud business. I don't worry about the wire sitting behind it. I don't worry about the generation sitting behind it. I don't worry about the fuel sources sitting behind it, for the most part. Now, some people do, but globally, I can tell you, for the most part, customers don't worry about that. So we've actually defined ourselves as trying to become the fourth utility, where data is seen as the same type of commodity as energy is seen, as water or gas is seen. And so I think that the industries are starting to collide now around that definition of what really is the cloud for our industries, what really is software as a service. The interesting thing to me is as an IT industry, we're quickly moving to a utility type of model. And yet when you attend conferences like this, you get the sense that, well, maybe the industry is trying to pull back from that. Now, I'm not saying the CEOs in this panel are doing that, but there are people in this industry that seem to think that disaggregating this model is a good thing. I happily don't think so. I think having it be simple for customers to use is what all industries have to do in the future. If you don't believe that, look at your retailer, right? The changes in the retail business are phenomenal these days because the retailer forgot that people generate product, and on the other end, they buy it. And the disruptive technology called the internet came up, and now you have a whole different way to buy it, and that whole segment of business may disappear. Utilities can build on the fact that they've already got a model that allows simple delivery of a commodity to a customer. We're trying to copy that in the IT business, so it's interesting to watch the different dynamics around the industry. I hope that helps.
No, it does. And Larry, you mentioned that you work closely with Oracle. So when the idea of IT as a utility is starting to emerge and you run a utility, how do you see this evolving space of software as a service?
Oh, wow, where do I start? I think, yes, we do. I was telling them that I've been through 2 large Oracle billing system implementations, incredibly powerful software, and as a utility, we don't really fully understand all of the parts of the car that he delivered. And so we have to facilitate installing these systems, and it's a customer care and billing system is what it stands for, CCMB. And so those are big uplifts for utilities, and those have always been our big challenges with technology. The other side of our technology is at City Light, we run all of our own generation. We're a vertically integrated utility with hydroelectric power and multiple projects that we own. And so we run a control area, and we balance our AGC against our generation all the time, constantly. And so those software tools that we have set aside to operate those systems are touchy. Those are cybersecurity issues. Those are a variety of other issues that, for the moment, we're kind of putting on the side and saying, okay, we're going to work with that. We're entering the energy imbalance market with California, and we will enter our exchange with all of the renewable energy that is in the West, and it is growing in the West. So those technology tools, software tools, are another subject, probably another time. I think what we're all kind of interested in is what's the consumer space going to be like, and how are we going to interact with our consumers over the variety of tools they want, or we think they want, or how we deliver those. It's interesting to me that a fact that I learned recently, just like I'll talk about utility websites for a second, that utilities get hit on their websites, and 70% of that activity is to reset their password for their billing. It is not to go in and look at all the things that we have on our websites about all the things that we do. They are interested in quick, fast, simple solutions. Resetting a password has to be aggravating for all of us, but that is the reality of the world that we're working in today. I live downtown Seattle. I work around 15,000 employees that work for Amazon who live there. They're from all over the world. They're all my children's age, most of them, and they are constantly looking at where technology goes, where it goes into space. So on the consumer side, as we're working on a really interesting project in Seattle that is smaller than smart grid. It's like we're going to be building these, effectively, if you want to look at it, you're going to effectively building modules out of our distribution system. So fundamental in our business is a robust and very efficient wires business that uses automation that you've heard about here, automating switching. We also run one of the largest downtown networks in the United States, and that is sort of a separate electric island that has a lot of redundancy, a lot of cost, a lot of specialized engineering, and the software uplift in that sector is not something I'm worried about too much about right now. What we're really talking about is our residential distribution system and what those customers want in terms of tools. What we hear over and over, and what I heard working here in Austin for the 6 years that I was CEO at Austin Energy, is simplicity. Customers want simplicity. Simplicity in their billing, simplicity in their tools, and the industry to develop those tools, we have to partner with the software providers in this country to do this. This is not an institutional tool I'm interested in developing at the utility, but we have to be joint architects with it. We have to give the solutions out there. I believe that in order to really fully automate what I would call our residential customers, those tools need to be seamless, and the customers really don't have to operate them. In other words, it's a brain that thinks for the customer. There's a variety of tools that are out there today, and I think there's a real opportunity to start working with that. I would say that as we work into that space, one of the large concerns that's coming about is privacy. Privacy of the information and who gets to look at it and how it is. We're a publicly owned utility, we're owned by the City of Seattle, so we're right in that transparent space where everybody wants to know, what do we know about those customers? We use public, if you will, Wi-Fi and a lot of other tools that are out there. I'm probably interested in moving that to a privatized sort of system to protect our cybersecurity and to assure our customers of privacy. And I think that privacy issue is probably one of the larger ones that we're working on. I can touch on more of this a little bit later, but I think that's a big lift issue for us.
Thank you, Larry. Mary, as a well-recognized innovative utility, how is software as a service supporting your goals and objectives?
Well, I don't know. I mean, honestly, that's not really what drives me or how I think about things. I find your analogy to moving to the utility business interesting, particularly at a time when we all appreciate, I think, that we're in one of the most disruptive times we've ever been in. So we actually stopped talking about ourselves and thinking about ourselves as a utility a few years ago. We see ourselves as an energy transformation company. We see ourselves as a company that, the most important thing to know about us is that we are absolutely obsessed with customers. We are absolutely obsessed with customers, and that obsession means that we're not obsessed with making what we do today simpler for them and sort of listening to them and then delivering what they say they want. Yeah, that has to happen. But what we're obsessed with is actually designing a future that gets at what they want that they can't even articulate yet. So our whole space is around really accelerating what we see as being a consumer-led revolution to a home, business, and community-based energy system. So, when I call us an energy transformation company, it's because that's what we're doing. So we're doing work. We were the first utility, so it's an interesting contrast to where you started, because we were the first and only utility, I think, to offer a package of off-grid. So, and actually, stunningly, I thought we'd have 5 people interested in it. Stunningly, we have dozens, even in a tiny state like Vermont. And the reason we did that was to sharpen our minds around what does it mean to be an energy transformation company? What does it really mean to be an energy as a service? Not thinking of it from the 130 years way we've been thinking about it, which is one directional. We provide you, we're paternalistic, we know what's best for you, we listen to you, and then we tell you what you really want, and then we guarantee you we shouldn't cross-subsidize, and we get into all these inane arguments that, in our view, isn't really customer-obsessed and isn't really around embracing and leveraging the new technologies and new software capabilities that are available today. To put a point on it, one of the things we're playing with and thinking about now as the first utility in the country to deploy the Tesla Powerwalls is we actually see a future where, I think only this industry could have called a smart meter a huge technological advance because, yeah, it gives you more information, but it looks the same. It still provides one function. It doesn't do anything else but read consumption. We see a future where actually something like, whether it's Tesla or another device, actually replaces completely the need for a meter, where you actually have a device that can dramatically improve reliability, can dramatically reduce the cost of the grid because we're shifting power around to when it is best for the rest of the grid. So again, we're really, as we think about what it means to have energy as a service, we put it in the starkest form, which is how are we working with customers to make their lives simpler, transformed, lower carbon, lower cost, incredibly reliable, but to do it in a way that over time really moves the bulk power delivery system, which on a good day in America, I think we all know, is about 42% economically efficient. Let me state that again. On a good day, the bulk delivery system is about 42% economically efficient. and move towards a system that over the next couple of decades is much more economically efficient because it is around leveraging distributed resources, storage resources, and amazing technological advances to move more towards a system where power is generated and consumed more where it's needed. So that was a mouthful.
No.
I don't think I answered your question.
No, it doesn't. You don't have
But
to.
I don't, yeah, whatever.
That's the good part. You don't have to answer.
Okay, good.
Mary wanted to get that out no matter what.
Well, I was curious, Ben, what is your takeaways from those comments in terms of being such a larger utility and having this challenge of how do you listen to your customers?
Oh, we don't listen to them. That's the joke. No, first of all, we've been serving our communities for 100 years. And the next 100 years, I think we've earned the right to have that opportunity to serve them. We have to, I like to say internally, we have to think competitively to stay regulated. And by that I mean some of the things that Mary talked about. We have to not only understand what our customers want, but understand what they might want they don't even know yet. All that said, you know, the first and foremost thing that we know our customers want is all of them want reliable, safe, affordable energy. Most of them want clean energy. And I talked in my opening remarks about, you know, we are the industry leader in reducing carbon, and we're doing so in a way that's pragmatic and is actually neutral, if not increasingly positive to the bottom line from a consumer's perspective. But to Mary's point, customers increasingly, they don't benchmark us against other utilities. They benchmark us against the Googles and the Amazons and the others of the world. So we have to figure out a way to make it easier to do business with us, to give them different products and services. But yes, when we do that, you have to understand we have to get permission to do that. I tomorrow cannot decide that I'm going to give you a special product. I have to ask for permission to do that. Part of that permission asking process is to make sure that it's fair to other customers, or if it is subsidized, we understand it and we're talking about it and it's transparent. I think we're in the early days of using technology to better serve our customers. Internally, things like, you know, the enterprise-wide systems, we've been doing that. We're in the middle of doing an SAP implementation right now. We're using the world's most sophisticated software to integrate the wind and renewables on our system and make sure that we're really harnessing that wind and not idling it because we don't understand it. I think we're in the early days of data analytics, what that can mean to better serve our customers from our traditional utility approach, but also inside the home, if we're given permission, which I think we've earned the right to have, if we could develop those different products and services so we can move away from, which I absolutely think we have to move away from, serving customers on a KWH basis. Okay, that was a model that worked very well 30, 40 years ago. It actually served poorer customers better. It encouraged energy conservation. But when you fast forward to where we are today, and more importantly, where we're going to be tomorrow, that model is going to hold things back. It's actually going to cost poorer customers more money as they pay for other people's choices. It's not going to support the grid, et cetera, et cetera. So we've got to move away from that. We'll get there, and I think we're going to be more efficient than ever. I see an energy future where rates are going to be even more stable than they have been historically, and we're going to do even more for the consumer. And again, I also think with your help in this room, we're going to make sure we get there with reliability and safety and mining. Increasingly, that's things that I wasn't even thinking about 10 years ago, like cyber. So we are listening to our customers. We're taking advantage of technology. The other thing I like to say internally is we're going to understand technology, batteries, microgrids, all those things. Today, in our service territory, they're not in the money. We're going to move it, so we're going to understand those, but we're going to move technology at the speed of value as it relates to our customers. And we'll get there.
Can I make a couple comments? Just to second some of what was just said, one of the things, and folks who have heard me speak about this before, it sends the hair on the back of their necks up a little bit maybe, but I agree with what Mary just said. I think this concept of the meter is a real innovative constraint that we've artificially put in place. Technology is going to drive this industry to new and different places, and this idea that there's both sides of the meter, we just need to get beyond that and start talking about beyond the meter. The meter is an artificial constraint we've put on ourselves, and it really throttles back the innovation discussion. And I can't second more what Mary said about the idea that once we get past that concept, what utilities will be allowed to do in this industry, or could do, I should say, will be phenomenal. So point number one. Point number two is, and I think you heard it from actually all three CEOs, is essentially that utilities should be able to compete in this marketplace. I hear a lot about utilities, well, should they have the right to compete? Listen, I'm in a competitive business. I don't know many more businesses that are more competitive than mine. And I don't recall Larry Ellison, Steve Jobs, Bill Gates saying early on when they were competing eyeball to eyeball with IBM and HP that please take those folks out of this business. We just want to have the right to generate our own businesses.
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way, folks. If you have a product that's going to help this industry, it'll work. If you don't, this idea that utilities should be allowed to play because they have a competitive advantage, I don't believe that. That's the way industry is born. You can be competitive, et cetera. The other thing that as a global business I can tell you is it's always interesting to have these discussions in a Western-based country. But the struggle I go through is we still have literally over 1 billion people in this world that don't have access to electricity. And so we still have an obligation to serve a lot of folks who would like to even have this conversation. And so as we sit and look at the world, we need to keep up with the technological advancements that everybody's talking about here. But we also have to remember we still have to get to the basic delivery of electricity in a lot of parts of this world. And so what we learn here, I believe, may allow us to jump, just like we did in telecom, where we skipped a lot of the wired business and went straight to cellular towers because it was easier infrastructure to install. I think the benefit of these discussions that we're having now and how this all settles out will actually benefit people around the world as we find simpler ways to deploy our technology and actually give more people access to electricity. But sometimes we forget that in Western countries, and it's still a big issue out there. So.
Yeah. I'd like to follow up on that. A great point raised. Years ago, I served on the board of a telecom company, and as you kind of thought about the transition of what was happening with telecom, third world countries in particular, I mean, not even third world countries, but countries that don't have they didn't wire, like in Mexico, for example, most of Mexico was never wired with twisted pair phone lines to the house. So they just jumped right to the cell business. So to follow up on what he was talking about is that in the telecom, what transitioned is we used to get billed by minutes on our cell phones. Now I think most of us, I don't even know how many minutes I use. And that's sort of irrelevant. So now it's about, and you move it to electricity, if you've got a 200 amp panel in your home, then we can kind of figure out what a flat rate ought to be. And you could either be in the middle or you could price it differently. But there are utilities around the world that do basically kind of price this way. And so what happens is we don't worry as much about the meter anymore. What we're worried about is the safety and security and reliability of a grid system and making sure that we get the revenue for it. That's important. But and making sure that we don't cause disparity between classes of customers and the rates, and so that we make it fair. And so as we uplift technology and everything, we really do have to look back and say, hey, are we at a point where the way that we price, the way we do things, can we do that differently? And I think it's really fascinating to do. I will say, though, that I don't have shareholders to report to. I have the public and policymakers. And when you take those ideas in, the groups the stakeholders that tend to be really critical are those that are in the energy efficiency business, because if you no longer are doing that, then just what happens in that space? Well, take a look around at all the lighting that's happening in the country. That's where the sales have gone, by the way, is LED lighting. And so in a lot of ways, technology on the end use is really taking care of a lot of that for us. And so as you move that along, maybe it is time to start taking a look at some of this pricing stuff that's a little bit different. And we can use technology to make sure that we're solving that in a correct and financially responsible way. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
And I encourage anyone, if you want to have a question, that the mic is there. So I'm struck by the fact that you all have expressed a deep value to knowing the customer. That's essential across the line. How about knowing the regulator? So that, because essentially the regulator's role is to be a steward for the customer, which you're committed to knowing. Yet that often is the place where things slow down in terms of moving forward with a vision. How does that get incorporated into the process of knowing the customer and circulate the regulator into that discussion?
I'll start with that. I'm in 8 states and 21 different regulatory jurisdictions, so I know my regulators. And the regulator is the proxy for the customer. I mean, you know, we have a franchise, and you know, and you're allowed to, you're told to serve all customers, and in exchange for that, you get to serve all customers. And the regulator is that proxy. So I think it's essential that you work with your regulator, understand what your customers want through the eyes of the regulator, and work forward to get that. And increasingly for us, I mean, what's really worked is, as I said, all customers want affordable energy. Most customers want clean energy. I do think as a utility and as a society, we can decarbonize in a pragmatic way. We're demonstrating how it can be done. Our regulators support that, and we're making a lot of progress on that. Our regulators, though, have to get into the weeds, have to make sure that when we, for example, we have a product called Renewable Connect. It allows customers that want to be even greener than our basic offering. I think it's a great product. It took us 2 years and 2 tries and millions of dollars, quite frankly, to get that product approved, because I had to ask for permission. My regulator had to make sure that it was fair to all customers, and quite frankly, they had to respond to people that intervened in that proceeding, some of whom, to Roger's point, don't want us to be able to offer anything but a one-size-fits-all product. And I don't think that's appropriate. I think we can do so much more. We haven't even started doing the various time of use billing and demand charges and things like that, which I think will promote batteries when that technology has moved to the speed of value. So the regulator has to move away. They have to move with that energy future vision in mind, because I think our customers want them to do it. But it can make things slow and at times frustrating.
I just have to say, I think batteries have moved at the speed of value. So I just want to posit there's a contrarian view to that. So
depends what I think your price point is, Mary.
I think, well, yes and no. So I think a part of what this industry is designed for is to get to know, and I think it's amazing when you challenge yourselves to get to yes. So how do we leverage it? How do we innovate? How do we do it in a way that creates and stacks additional value? I think it is amazing what value you can find. You know, back to the regulatory paradigm, though, you know, yes, it is true that you know, the biggest thing we share with our regulators is hopefully our obsession with our customers. I mean, I have to say, though, honestly, I feel for you. I am glad I work in a little state. You know, I honestly am. I have a former regulator here today who was instrumental in a lot of the work that we're doing. You know, it is easier when you can actually talk, when you can actually have your teams get to know the regulatory staff and really feel like you're all in working together. It is very challenging, though, when we think about all the disruption happening in our industry. From a big picture perspective, to look at, you know, to Roger's point, the inherent resistance to change that's built in, the inherent resistance. You know, I find it comical on the one hand that, you know, we're viewed as like the big bad monopoly, and yet on the other hand, they're worried about us competing and eating somebody else's lunch, where it's like, well, no, actually, we're starting from the underdog position. You know, it's not like we're asking to be in a space that others aren't already providing our customers. We're asking to be in a space where if we create these new value streams, it helps all of the customers we serve by lowering the cost of the grid. So, you know, it is an important question, and it is one that I think needs a lot of focus over the next couple of years, because it is an industry that, in my view, you know, again, it's 130 years old, this infrastructure way. We actually haven't made huge technological advances. Is there cooler stuff that can go in substations? Yep. Is there a smarter meter versus a dumb one? Yep. Is it still basically the same Fred Flintstone system that it was 130 years ago? Yep. It is, right? And we have entrenched mindsets from every angle while we have this incredible disruption that's happening right beside us at the same time. And my view is if we don't all work together to figure out how to lean into that, we are headed towards one of the biggest. I'm very interested in your view of it's going to be a cheaper future, because when I see that the U.S. had their largest spending ever last year, over $10 billion in transmission for a system, again, that's on a good day 40-some-odd% economically efficient, that says to me we're headed towards a financial Armageddon. If we have disruptive technology, we're building up the cost of the infrastructure. So being all in, working closely with regulators, but doing it in the context of how do we create transformative change is, I think, what the dialogue all needs to be about.
Well, I mean, if I could just comment a little bit. I can tell you, Mary, we have some of the lowest prices in the nation. We work hard to keep it that way, and I really work hard to say yes to batteries, and that's why we're doing pilot programs and microgrids, and we'll be ready. But for our jurisdiction, they don't quite meet the economic bar. There's some niche, you have to stack values, well aware of that. And in some places where perhaps because of permitting and other things, you can put a battery in instead of putting more wires in place and, overloading a distribution system. But right now, it's limited on our system. I won't speak to yours. We work hard to say yes. You don't get to a 45% carbon reduction by not saying yes. And I think this industry is innovative. The transmission lines, I think, in an era with flat sails, you do have to be careful with that. But some of those transmission lines are bringing wind from the plains, wind from the Dakotas, wind from rural areas of Minnesota and Colorado at a price point to our customer at $18 levelized over 25 years, a megawatt hour. Now, just so you put this in perspective, a coal plant has a variable cost when you're burning Western coal of about $23 a megawatt hour. Gas with variable costs is today, and certainly we don't know where gas will go 10 years from now, is probably in the upper 20s, maybe $30. So you can have a little transmission, and that's embedded, by the way, in that $18 price I was talking about, and still serve your customers in a way that I think will allow us to keep our rates very flat, very stable, and less volatile, because we all know fossil fuels can be very volatile in price. So I'm excited about it.
Let me see if we can dovetail your question or comment into this discussion. Keep talking. Keep going.
All right, I'll just raise my voice here. Hi, my name is Deepak, and I am founder and CEO of iRestore. We're a mobile software as a service company serving the utility industry. As a software company, and we're trying to apply design thinking to solve the problems of the largest technical workforce in the U.S., electrical workers, outside workers for utility companies. And as a software company, we got to listen a lot to what customers need and want. And I think each of you touched on ways in which you're listening to your customers and trying to change the service offering or as a service offering that your companies have. What are some things you're doing, each of you, Mary and Ben, within your organizations to institutionally listen to customers and then modify the product or service that you're offering to customers?
One of the things we're doing, I'll start, is we are re-examining and in many cases reinventing, and sometimes with the help of technology, all of our customer touching processes. As a utility, we've enjoyed great customer loyalty, but I sometimes think that you shouldn't confuse loyalty with captivity. And we know that we've got to delight our customers. So we are reworking the customer experience, and we do that in a very disciplined way, and we're getting some great results. But I think we're in the early days of that, because we're in the early days of what technology will lead us to.
Yeah, that was a great question. It kind of leads me to one of my favorite lines, which is culture eats strategy. I think culture eats strategy for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And actually, the sort of foundation of the cultural transformation of Green Mountain Power was on our customer obsession, and it was about completely transforming the culture of the organization from one where, when I interviewed at the company, it was called the Glass Palace that I went into for good reasons. CEO had private office, private bathroom, private conference room, private secretary. Was an amazing, wonderful man, by the way, but really never saw customers and never saw direct line field employees. Fast forward to where we are now. We have no private offices at Green Mountain Power. I actually work at a stand-up desk right next to field employees. We have no conference rooms that don't have glass, so there's no place to run, there's no place to hide. Everything is out in the open, and we tie our customer obsession to actually what we do on a regular basis. So yes, we survey them obsessively, we poll them obsessively, we have all the things with telephone technology. You can give us instant feedback. But in the culture of customer obsession, we also have goals around meeting with customers, talking with customers on a regular basis. So for me, a week does not go by that I don't talk to a customer. That's true of everybody on the leadership team, as well as we have ways of engaging our employees where they're regularly talking to customers and communicating back. So, and when I say I meet with customers, it's not like the politically correct ones only, like the large IBM and Global Foundries and Ben & Jerry's. It is the mom and pops, it's the grocery stores, it's the gas stations, it is the folks in the community. So again, I feel like a big part of, yeah, we have all the stats that tell us, and we're told we have 94% customer satisfaction, we have 93% trust. We're actually higher in our favorability in Vermont, believe it or not, than Ben & Jerry's in terms of customer favorability, but it is about how do you entrench it in the culture so that, again, you're trying so hard and you never get there, so you got to always keep trying to not just hear what they want, but go beyond and imagine that future that delivers them, not just practical solutions, but really transformative solutions that are getting to their deepest needs and values.
So, is that Jan?
Yes.
Oh, Jan, if you can make this more of a closing question, that'd be great.
I will try. So back to energy as a service, which was the topic of this session. We spoke about business models yesterday. What do you see as the biggest threat to your current business model, and what do you see as the biggest opportunity for new business model as a utility?
Well, maybe I'll jump in here. As far as the threat goes, well, first of all, Seattle City Light is completely carbon neutral. We're 100% green energy. Even my air trip down here is offset by some other attribute that reduces the carbon used to get me to Austin. So we've moved beyond that, and we've moved into a space where the competition that I feel is out there is the employees. The employees we need to do the safe and reliable job we do in the system, the tools they need, and my job is to be really engaged with all. We've got 2,000 employees. They work in a variety of areas. We operate our own generation, so forth, and those employees are the ones, they're customers as well. So we're in a public utility, you really have to focus on your employees as customers, and they have the solutions, and so you really have to take that feedback and bring that in to what you're working on in the future, because one of our competitive niches that we have, at least in the Northwest, and while I've worked in California and Texas, it's the same both places, is making sure that we've got really good skilled folks at our shop, creative, innovative, the electric craft. We are huge in electric craft with all of our facilities, and empowering those folks to tell us what kind of tools they need, what solutions might be out there, and empowering them to engage customers in the field is something all utilities have done in one way or another, so that we're empowering decisions out there that don't need to come back to the Glass Palace or wherever that might be, to say, hey, how about this? We're not regulated by the states, so we're able to launch a product quickly, very quickly. Public power in the United States is very big, and that's one of the big advantages we have, is that when we see tools that we want to move into place, there, you know, at least at City Light, I'm pretty empowered to do what my staff feels we really need to do, and we'll work with the industry to do it. We'll do a lot of pilot programs, like everybody smartly will do, to make sure that we're not making some missteps. But the optimization of our system and keeping our rates low, our rates are so low that we bill residential customers every other month. So it's that reliability quality that we really have to focus on, and our environmental attributes, we've checked the list on that, and making sure that we have a system that works seamlessly and easily. I forgot exactly all the second part of your question, but you've gone now, so I can't see you. Anyway, so that's a couple points on that.
And you know, I would love to hear that from all of you. We're getting to the end of our time, and several of you made just a specific effort to be here in the middle of a very busy day. So first I want to thank you all for coming, making this important enough to be here, and for the insights you've shared with all of us. So thank you very much.
Thank you.